pleasant morning to you out there. The program is the Dailies on Echo Television International, your news and current affair programs where we keep you updated with what is happening on the papers this morning. And for today, most of the papers are capturing the story where Nigerians are complaining under the new price of the fuel. You know, it's quite outrageous. Nigerians just stepped out yesterday and then the prices of the, transportation have actually skyrocketed. So we'll just hope that you sit tight with us as we go through some of the reasons, and also even as they are saying that they will update Nigerians on the reason why they have increased the price of fuel. So just keep tight as we take you through the papers. I am Sada Elisha Dasham, and I've been doing this with Rachel Tansey. Good morning, Rachel.
Sarah.
All right, let us move quickly to the papers, starting with the Blueprint newspaper.
On the Blueprint newspaper, we are prepared to combat terrorism on West Coast. A statement coming from the President Tinubu. Electricity subsidy gulped 2.8 trillion naira in 7 years. A report coming from NERC. Nigerian man goes blind attempting to break Guinness World Record. You can find the details on page 7. The big story on Blueprint newspaper: on 617 naira per litre new pump price, Nigerians fume as NNPCL anchors decision on market forces. The writer flowing the story: rise in fried crude oil prices, major reasons. This is coming from NMDPRA. CSOs NUJ exports fault hike. CNG Oyebanji urge patience. We are already missing Buhari. A statement coming from Nigerians. You can find the details on page 8 and the details of the entire big story on page 6. Still on Blueprint newspaper, Sultan declares today as commencement of new Islamic calendar. Suspected drug addict strangulates mother in Ogun. You can find the details of that sad story on page 9. Nigerians yet to feel impact of policy change, which I would agree. You can find the details on page 23. And at the downside of the paper, after public outcry, Tinubu orders review of 8,000 naira cash transfer. The writer flowing the story directs immediate release of fertilizers, grains to 50 million farmers and households. NLC threatens withdrawal from palliative committee, says policy rewarding the rich. You can find more details on page 6, and that's all the news on Blueprint newspaper.
On the Daily Times newspaper, get ready, fuel price will still go up or down, NNPCL tells Nigerians. You can find detail of that story inside the paper. The big story is still on the issue of the fuel hike. Nigerians groan under the fresh fuel price hike, with the rider rain curses on the government, queues return, trekking order of the day, transport fare shoots up, food rent jumps dramatically. You can find detail of the story inside the paper. Reps to probe 150,000 MTS stolen crude oil burn vessel. We still have downside of the paper. ECOWAS leaders now battle ready to fight terrorism. Funding no problem coming from Tinubu. Again, NYSC warned corpers against unauthorized trips. You can find detail of that story inside the paper. And that's all on Daily Times newspaper.
On this day newspaper, Tinubu directs immediate review of 8,000 naira cash transfer. Orders unveiling of entire palliative package to Nigerians. This is still on the fuel subsidy. You can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 10. Illegal export order. Court orders EcoBank to pay Honeywell 72 billion naira. More details can be found on page 10. President had no telephone conversation with the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Ariola. This is from APC. You can find more details on page 8. Challenged by bleak future, newspaper owners, stakeholders deliberate on ways forward. The big story on this day newspaper: fuel price, Labour threatens to pull out of talks with federal government. Litre now 617 naira. Carry attributes hike to market forces. NLC accuses government of insensitivity. Says no transparency in disbursement of palliative. NNPCG CEO says no shortfall in product supply. NMDPRA blames rising crude prices, freight cost. NECA kicks urges federal government not to kill those it's trying to save. You can find more details inside the paper on page 10. And from federal character, House to probe MDA's appointment for 2015 to 2023. More details can be found on page 9. We have a picture story, democracy and security in their mind, where we can see the president. And that's all the news on this day newspaper.
On Daily Independent newspaper, proposed 8,000 naira palliative, case of robbing poor to pay the rich. This is a report coming from NLC, with the writer say it's not visible. Federal Character Index reps to probe MDA's appointment from 2015 to date. The big story for Daily Independent. Anguish lamentation as fuel price hits 620 naira per litre. The rider we condemn in strong terms another hike in pump price. This is coming from the CLO. Harder times ahead coming from Labour Party. Market forces of demand supply playing out. This is a report coming from NNPCL, NMDPRA. You can find that story on page 7. Appellate court dismisses Enugu APC Guba appeal against Governor Mba. And we also have court refuses to extend orders stopping trial of suspended Adamawa Rec Hudu Yunusa Ari. You can find that on page 29. Coming from Kogi Guba poll, court clears Odudu as Ajumegu set to appeal judgment. You can find that on page 7. Civil aviation infrastructure requires total overhaul to support $13 trillion economy. You can find that on page 6. And on the subsidy removal, Tinubu succumbed to public outcry, orders review of 8,000 naira palliatives. Downside of the paper, we have 2.3 trillion naira no missing fund in TED fund, says Executive Secretariat. You can find detail of that story on page 29, and that's all on Daily Independence.
On First News newspaper, anthrax may have spread to South North. NCDC raises the alarm. The big story, petrol now 617 naira per litre. NNPCL blames market forces for price hike. Marketers adjust pumps as fuel queues resurface in Abuja and Lagos. NLC kicks warns federal government to retract actions. President Bola Tinubu receiving the presidents of Benin, Niger, and Guinea-Bissau on a courtesy visit at the Aso Rock Villa, Abuja on Tuesday. Nigeria ranks 5th among countries affected by organized crime, statement coming from Buratai. And on subsidy removal, Tinubu orders review of 8,000 naira palliative. At the downside of the paper, oil companies' refusal to pay tax hurting Bayelsa's revenue coming from Governor Diri. Tinubu orders probe into shooting of 2-year-old during NDLEA raid in Delta. IPOP lawyer defending Emefiele, DSS alleges. You can find more details inside the paper, and that's all the news on First News newspaper.
Richard, let's talk about the big story.
Yes.
I really am speechless at a time like this, and it's quite sad. It's very, very disheartening. And if you're going to look at it, look like it's insensitive and callous on the part of our oil marketers. Of course, from the papers, it's obvious that the reason why they had a hike in fuel is because of the prices they're actually getting the petrol. And I clearly remember during an interview that was being done for Kiari, he mentioned the fact that this removal of fuel subsidy will give room for competition in the market, where, because it's obvious from the paper, we're seeing some people saying 620 and others saying 617, just a difference of about 30 naira or so, or 30, however it's going to be, or just 3 naira difference.
Yes.
But then it's still very, very hard when Nigerians are still trying. In fact, they have not yet. They're still trying to adjust to the new price, about 200% hike from the previous price that they were getting it when the government was paying the subsidy. And now the government has stopped paying the subsidy. And then already, the order of the day was trekking. People got used to it. In fact, people made friends on the way. People, people came out with so many jokes, even to the height of saying, why don't not get an energy drink? It's cheaper. You take it and then you keep trekking and then you keep gisting, and then right now is the groundnut season. Others have even made a joke with it. Why not buy groundnuts and keep eating and keep trekking? Just in a way to make light of the situation. We know Nigerians have this habit of trying to adapt, but when you get too stretched, Rachel, the after effect is really not beautiful to see at the end of the day. And I really hope that the government will come up with something to do. Of course, the president is saying he's going to review the 8,000 naira palliative. I mean, a lot of Nigerians have complained about that compared to what the lawmakers are going to get from the supplementary budget. You would agree with me that the gap is too much. When we're seeing a member can go home with about over 200 and something million naira, and then you're telling a household then to get first 8,000 naira in 6 months, you know that is really not fair. But then I just hope that we sit back and think, because not only is the increase of this fuel high going to affect transportation, but it's going to also affect food prices. Just yesterday we saw in the paper that for June our inflation was 22.79%. So from the way things are, we've just passed mid-July. Today is 19th of July. So you could tell that before the end of July, I won't be surprised, Richard, that our inflation will be over 30%. Because from the look of things, I think it's really, really not going to be really going to have a very bad effect on Nigeria. NLC are saying they are backing out. And if you will ask the normal Nigerian, they'll say NLC are acting more like weaklings to issues of this. When they were supposed to go for strike, they didn't go for strike. We remember from the cash crunch where they said they're going to shut down all the central banks, and then they later on went back on their word when cash was coming little by little. And then we also saw during the issue of increasing of salary for workers, and they said they're going to give 8 weeks. So I think 3 weeks have gone now, right? So we are hoping for another 5 weeks or 4 weeks left, because by August we should hear that. But then are we going to wait till August before something is done to help Nigerians out? By August, are we not hoping to be having more casualties at the end of the day? We already see a lot of things are coming up, and the Nigerian electricity companies pushing hard to get increase of electricity tariff for Nigerians. A lot of things are already happening at the time like this. And then just when we're trying to adjust, another increase. Just yesterday, if you had actually planned with 500 naira that will take you to and front, it's no longer enough. So that's just a day. In a week, how much are you calculating? And then we are seeing that people who are even working with private sectors are really the ones that are going to suffer, because even the organizations that are private are trying to adapt with either working. I think last year or so, during that Dr. where we had of TV station, radio stations, a lot of places that had to shut down because they were unable to afford the price of fuel then, while they were still paying the fuel subsidy. Not to talk about now. So I just hope that the government will really have a rethink. If it means for them to call NLC, the NNPCL, so they could have a roundtable, they should do just that. Because I remember that when the first subsidy was supposed to remove in June, they removed it in June, and they said because the government did not pay the subsidy, they are supposed to be paying them. That was why they did all that. So really, we cannot tell why NNPCL did what they did, but I hope the government will call them and then they will have an interaction, because honestly, Nigerians are really, really suffering. We've seen that from the paper. There was a paper you took where it said that Nigeria, where's that paper? I think I got, the first newspaper where it said Nigeria ranked the 5th among countries affected by organized crime. So it's really, really beating hard on Nigerians. And I just hope that the government will check where all these organized crimes are coming from, because all of these things are part of the organized crime. Yesterday we had a guest where he was talking about some of the money that have been unaccounted for going to the humanitarian affairs. Until they were yet to hear what happened to the 5,000 I've been giving. Do you have a data of the people that you give the money to? Do you know their locations and all of that? We're yet to have all of that. So we hope something is being done about this, Rachel.
So that the more I see how this whole fuel subsidy removal is going, it feels more like a hike than a subsidy removal, because we are very aware that this is not First of all, we are not getting 100% subsidized fuel rates in at the fuel station and all of that. It has never been 100%. Now, it means whatever percentage that have been taken should be the percentage effect that we're seeing. However, we are seeing fuel prices going way above 200%, 300% increase, and then you try to make sense out of the percentage in the increase over what was removed as subsidy in the first place. And some of this math, if you sit down and do it, is quite easy for you to understand. If we have us saving 400 billion naira monthly in subsidy from the subsidy removal, and we know that on an average we consume 66 above 0.7 million liters of oil per day. And if we can do the math all through the month, we should be able to know, okay, now this is how much has gone into subsidy. And if this was taken, that is, the actual what the fuel pump price will be without subsidy, and now that it has been removed, how much it should be. But then we can see that it is outrageous, and then nothing tallies when it comes to these figures and then this number. Now, this is not the concern. For me, is the policies that the government are putting all together that you wonder what thought was put into it, because these things don't move along. They will not tally, they don't correlate and all of that, because when you are floating your currency and you don't have a parallel market, because it's the same thing now as what we have in the banks, and you are given an I&E window, it means that this is a long-term thing. It's not short-term. And then the CBN won't step in immediately, because I see it as a test run, trial and error. Let's see, will this window help stabilize the dollar exchange rate? Will it help give value? And as it is, it's not. Now, admits us seeing them, because since last week, we have coming from the NMDPRA, including an NNPCL, telling us that more petrol is coming into the country. Now, it sounds as if with more availability of petrol, we would have started seeing perhaps a normalized price or a decrease in the price, meaning we have it enough. Now, what is affecting, because there are, of course, many factors and reasons behind this, is that now that we are having our naira devaluing, it means regardless of how much quantity of fuel we have available, even if it's enough, we are most likely going to see this. Now, this is where I wonder, did the government truly put thought into these policies? Because it's not about going fast, because there's so much hate in the government, the presidency is going fast, he's appointing this, he's appointing that. Well, we have now service chiefs, but who do we need? We need ministers in office. We need people in this office to sit down and start thinking of how to regulate and implement things that will help the economy. And we are still waiting for that. When we don't have people actively in this office, and you've taken all of these economic policies and decisions, then you wonder, what thought was put into this? And do you really have Nigerians in heart? Because if you are floating your currency and leaving importers and exporters to decide your exchange rate, and then you are removing fuel subsidy, then this is it already smells like chaos. And you know that, because I want to believe you have the resources and the expert to give you all the analysis and data you need to know what is the repercussion. But still, you went ahead with that, and then you are now considering reviewing. In the first place, 8,000, I don't know what was the rationale used to come to decide that households 8,000 would do anything in the first place. So now we'll just have to wait and see what would this review be in the first place, and what are you doing drastically to make sure that we are not having a liter of petrol selling at 617, and what are you doing about the parallel market and then the I&E window concerning our exchange rate, knowing that we have been assured that there will be petrol coming into the country. Now it has come, because this was since last week. I believe that is now as a result of these new products coming in. Now we are seeing a difference in prices. So it's just for the government to come out and tell us what are the steps you are taking to reduce the hardship. I'm not talking about palliative. No, palliatives are, by the way, Sele. What are the things you're doing to make sure that these effects are short term, because they are feeling like it looks like it's going to be a long term thing. And if it is long term, then Nigerians should just brace themselves that, you know what, this hardship is going to linger for a while.
Honestly, Richard, just like you're saying, it's more like when you go to the hospital for treatment, when a culture test is being taken, they check which of the illness is higher. For instance, if you're having typhoid malaria,
True.
they check is the typhoid that is higher than malaria. Let's treat typhoid
That's
before
true.
malaria.
That's
They don't just give you the entire antibiotic for both malaria and typhoid at the same time. The side effect is usually very, very terrible. So I
yes.
think the government really did not do the test they are supposed to do before all of these policies, because believe you me, it's not sitting well with
It's
Nigerians.
not.
And all this English we're speaking, a common Nigerian
Will
will not
not.
comprehend that. So I don't know how they come up with all of this, but just like you said, we hope that you go back to the round table, have a rethink, and maybe let us see something will be done
Yes.
differently. Well, let's take a look at the Nation newspaper. UK agency OK Naira for trade financing. You can find that story on page 7. Senate House to probe NNPCL, NDDC and others. Many allegation in focus. We hope to hear detail of this allegation and what will be done. You can find that story on page 4. CBN access 2,698 BDCs, and then we have heat wave threatening lives in US and Europe. Of course, I saw that. It's really, really very terrible, especially. So we hope that for those who are living in the Europe, you can actually find more detail of those, and those who want to know what is happening over there, you can read that story on page 5. MPA target 500 billion naira revenue. You can find that story as well on page 5. Tinubu orders NDLEA to probe killing of 2-year-old by operatives in Delta. And the big story, Tinubu orders release of grains to 50 million farmers and others. President direct review of 8,000 naira cash transfer to poor household. We hope to hear what the new money will be. We hope it will be twice the price right now. It should be twice 8,000 naira, because just like you say, we don't know what was the criteria that they used to say 8,000 naira
Yes.
will be enough for a household. Senate seeks immediate action on Ondo Ocean search. We have Ibrahim motion gets support. You can find detail of that story on the front page and on page 4. Market forces driving price of petrol, says Kiari. NNPCL price of petrol will go up and down as prevailing situation dictates. You can find more on page 5 too. We also have downside of the paper, Oyo, Oshun, Kanu and others declare holiday for Hajj. You can find that story on page 2, and that's all on the Nation newspaper.
On the Matrix newspaper, IPOP lawyer defending Emefiele says DSS. Senate to unveil Tinubu's ministerial nominees today. Robbing the poor to feed the rich, NLC slams 500 billion naira palliatives. You can find the details on page 3. And for sports, Napoli offer Osimhen 6.5 billion naira annual salary. On capitalization, CBN withdraws licenses of 2,698 Beruda change. It's part of process of cleaning up foreign exchange space. Coming from Yusuf, you can start with the details on the front page and continue inside the paper. The big story on the Matrix newspaper on fuel subsidy, paying again in the land as petrol price hits 617 naira per litre. Market forces not Tinubu responsible for the increase in pump price. A statement coming from Kyari. Federal government eyes electric cars as alternatives. Tinubu orders review of palliative structure. You can find all the details on page 2. Subsidy removal, naira depreciation push inflation to 22.79%. You can find the details on page 15. POS operators protest new charges. LCCI advocates equal access to Forex for NNPCL, orders for competitiveness. At the downside of the paper, CBN, Egypt's apex bank partner on joint fintech breach. We have a picture story showing ECOWAS mediators in the villa. Former President Goodluck Jonathan met with President Bola Tinubu at the presidential villa in Abuja yesterday, and that's all the news on the Matrix newspaper.
On the Voice of Liberty, why petrol pump price increased to 617 naira per litre, coming from the NNPCL. Adamu's tenure comes under EFCC probe, source alleges. DSS and Emifele fake news alert on Sarkin Hausawa, Lagos. You can find that story inside the paper. We saw that on the paper on Monday. And so you can find what this story is all about, where we saw that those there in Lagos are saying that the Sarkin Hausawa that was actually arrested should be released. So you can find detail of that story inside the paper. And then we also have a fuel price hike. NLC reject proposed palliative, asks the federal government to retrace steps. The Nigerian Labour Congress has kicked against the increased pump price of petrol to 617 naira, saying the development remains unacceptable to Nigerians. CLO tackles Tinubu over hike in pump price of fuel. We also have CBN withdraw licenses of 2,698 BDCs as Naira continues free fall. Stop Disco's I take that story. Stop Disco's plans to increase electricity tariff. OPC urges Tinubu. We saw in the paper where they want to consult again with the public before they go ahead with that. So you can find detail inside the paper. We will develop economic policy for job creation, coming from the Vice President Shetima. You can find all of the story inside the paper, and that's all on the Voice of Liberty.
On New Telegraph, Forex transfer, banks warn customers against unregistered firms. CBN revokes license of 2,698 BDCs. Federal government paid 2.8 trillion naira subsidy for electricity under Buhari, statement coming from NERC. Tinubu condemns 2-year-old boy's killing by NDLEA officers, stray bullet. Senate probes multi-billion naira contract on sea incursions in Ondo. You can find the details on page 7. CBN CBE set up Nigeria Egypt fintech breach. EFCC disowned police lawyer who filed criminal charges against Senator Udwa. You can find more details on page 29. The big story on New Telegraph, shock, outcry, despair as fuel hits 617 naira in Abuja, 568 and 2,700 naira per litre in Lagos. The writer flowing the story, Kano, 620 naira, Bauchi, 650 naira. We have labor orders kicking against it. NNPC uplifts market forces. Ipman holds naira for liable. Statement. And then we have NMDPRA fingers rising crude price, freight rate increase. Nigerians being deceived, coming from Labour, asks federal government to retrace its steps. Predict pump price may rise to 1,000 naira soon. You can find more details on page 2 and 28. Tinubu orders propose 8,000 naira cash transfer review. CLO to mobilize Nigerians against bad policies, says 35 billion naira palliative designed to compromise judiciary. Nigeria ranks low in cost of living, makes top polluters list. More details can be found on page 5. Still on New Telegraph newspaper, Nigerian constitution, military, not democratic, coming from Budi George. Nigerians need good governance from elected leaders, statement coming from Ozodinma. Nation has failed to achieve its potential, a statement from Diri. You can find details on page 4. Reps to security stop destroying vessels with stolen oil. Urges NCDC to stop spread of anthrax, and National Assembly seeks federal government intervention in Anambra and Edo erosion menace. You can find the details on page 4, 5, and 7. We have a study, biotech firms aim to lab-grow babies. I'll take that again. Biotech firms aims to make lab-grown babies. You can find more details on page 27, and that's all the news on New Telegraph newspaper.
All right, before we move to the next paper, we'd like to take a time out at this moment so we can, let you chew the stories. Drop your comment on Facebook and on YouTube, and then you can also call our line so we can hear what your contribution is or what your thought is concerning any of the story. Please stay tuned.
If people are engaged with happenings in their country, they will better understand where the government is going wrong.
And once they do, they are better equipped to combat the problem as well as prefer solutions.
On Nigeria Now, every Monday to Friday at 3:30 p.m., we bring you
analysis of happenings in politics,
crime,
security,
and government policies.
Thank you for staying tuned. It's still the Dailies on Echo Television International. We've been looking at various stories, especially that of the agony and outcry coming from Nigerians on the hike of fuel. And then we know that that will affect transportation, food prices, I mean other things too. And then also the president have also, retraced a step by, reviewing the 8,000 naira that will be sent to 12 million households. So you keep your fingers crossed and see what the review will be on that price. I still have Rachel Tanzi with me. Thanks so much,
You're
Rachel.
welcome, Sarah.
All right, our phone number is actually displayed on your screen at this moment. Please do well to call us. We'd love to hear what your thought is, what your contribution are concerning any of the stories that are of interest to you. Please do remember to turn down the volume of your TV set when you call us. Be very audible because we'd love to hear what you have to say. And then let's be very civil with our language when we call, because we really love you and we do not want you to get into trouble. So please be very, very careful with your language. Well, let's take a look at the next paper, which is the Daily Sun. All right, we have a call already. Good morning.
Hello?
Hello, good morning, sir.
Yes, Sele and Rachel, my sister. Good morning. How are you?
We are
Fine.
great,
Good
thank
morning.
you.
How are you, Sele and Rachel?
We're fine, sir.
Yes, Shaman calling from Kaduna.
All right, Mr. Shama, go ahead.
Honestly, my sisters, you are making very sweet analysis this morning. That
you,
is
sir.
heart-touching. I cannot imagine where this country is driving us to. Should we continue suffering like this? Can you be in a river and stop sprinkling your eyes? We have abundance in this country. We are naturally endowed with all it takes for a nation to enjoy. But since 2015, when Buhari came on board, the narration of this country changed. We are thinking if the next government comes on board, we are going to have a relief. Now, issues have been compounded. Can you imagine the heart of TMS in this country again? Humanity is becoming something else. People are crying. Government seems not to say anything. We have government, but we don't have governance. We pray that by our committed prayers, God will change the narration of this country to fit us, make us feel okay in this nation. Honestly speaking, I went to filling station yesterday. When I bought my fuel, I said 620. I said, what is this? What is happening? They said they have changed from side. I said, why? I said, is it not an old stock? They said, no. This is what they can see in the country. Why are Nigerians doing this to themselves? We pray that we get it back to this country. Things are not being amicable in this nation. Labor on farm capacity supposed to speak out. We have a labor that doesn't fight work for the citizen. Adam Oshomole was the only person I know that fought parties. When Ayuba came and left, he did nothing. We pray that Joe Ajero, the new NSC president, would take the bull by the step so that this country will be good morning, my sisters.
Morning. Thank you, Shamal. Thank you so much for that. Quite disheartening. But just like he said, we hope that Labour will speak up for the people, because everybody cannot just go meet the government. That's why we have representatives. So I hope that they speak, not just for the civil servant, but for Nigerians entirely, because this is really biting hard on them. Well, let's take a look at the Daily Sun newspaper. Damages, court rules in favor of Honeywell. Others, EcoBank to pay 72 billion naira. You can find that story on page 27. Anger agony as petrol price rises to 617 naira. With the rise of Linda story, sharp increase on wise threats to Nigeria coming from the NLC and the CLO. Market forces driving up petrol prices, says Kiare. Why we hike price coming from the oil
Honestly,
market?
in fact, the issue of this fuel subsidy, honestly, in fact, people are suffering. And in fact, just like from my local government to the state capital in last year, honestly, the money is high. So we are appealing the federal government to reduce the money because honestly, people are suffering. Some, in fact, no food in their house. So this government, we are appealing to President Tinubu to help us in this situation, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Even though I didn't get your call, but I really understand people are suffering. We hope the government will take, some action, proactive actions on that. Still on Daily Sun newspaper, Senate raises the alarm over erosion menace in Edo and Anambra State. You can find our story on page 27. Soldiers killed 2 IPOB ESN fighters in Delta, arrest 5 others. You can find that on page 4. Why I sold my 3 children for 1.5 million, coming from a suspect. I saw that story during the weekend. He sold the first child for 700,000. He sold the youngest he sold the first child for 500. He sold the youngest for about 700,000, and then he sold the third one, which was about 3 years old, for 350,000 naira. So it's quite outrageous. The hunger and I think you can just boil that down to hunger and then being under direct hardship and all of that. But we hope that something will be done about that. We've seen the suspect giving us reasons why he did that.
Okay, good morning.
Morning, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, good morning.
Morning, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yes, Sele, good morning, and that's morning.
Morning.
In fact, looking at the news that is coming up on the papers, I want to contribute. You see, the director of that NNPC, Mr. Chari, talking about market forces which are pushing up the price. But when you look at the scenario, these are the same people who were saying if subsidy is removed, Nigerians will have a low price in the petroleum sector. Now the subsidy has been removed, and instead of bringing down the price, it is the same government that is jacking up the price. And these were the people who were blaming the major marketers that they are the ones influencing prices of fuel in Nigeria. So when I look at this, I see that the management of NNPC, they have nothing to offer. Upon all this, they are not talking about revamping our own refineries. Nobody has bring up a plan because we have refineries across this country which are owned by the government. No one is talking about revamping even one. But every time and each time, they will be telling us that the market price and the amount of importation is what is causing the fuel price to go up. To me, I agree with the headline that said that there is organized crime that is affecting this country, and NNPC cannot be exonerated from that organized crime. So I feel that the top management of NNPC should be sacked. The time to sack them is now, and to bring up brains that will check and know what will happen, and the country will come down to a level that at least an ordinary person like us will say, yes, we have a government. We have a government, but there's no good governance. That is my appeal.
Thank you so much, sir, for that contribution. We hope the government will look into that, even though you don't have an evidence that the NNPC are part of the organized crime. But then We hope that the government will do their finding, their probe, and then whoever is behind this can actually face the full wrath of the law. Still on Daily Sun newspaper, we also have a story here. Ganduji opens up on 10 billion naira CCTV camera loan project. You can find detail of that story on page 27. Alleged contract breach, Nigerian seek $150 million damages against Google, GoDaddy.com. You can find that on page 5. Outcome of presidential election tribunal may throw Nigeria into turmoil. Bode George warns. You can find that on page 30. Ex-governors, technocrats, top Tinubu's list of ministerial nominees. Senate received list of screening. You can find more detail of that screening on page 28. Downside of the paper, appeal court dismisses Enugu APC Guba appeal against Umba. You can find that on page 28. Picture story we can see is a fuel queue resurfacing in Abuja as the NNPC had increased the pump price. We can see the price here for 617 naira, diesel 460, and then you can find more of that inside the paper, and that's all on Daily Sun newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, articles document alleging certificate forgery against Tinubu showed inconsistency, APC tells court. Proposed palliative cash transfer robbed the poor to pay the rich, statement coming from NLC. Let passengers on the go BP sugar level check before boarding plane, reps tell Aviation Ministry. The big story on Nigerian Tribune, Nigerians organize NLC kicks as NNPCL sells petrol at 617 naira per litre. Unemployment caused by high petrol price will increase mental disorders. A statement coming from a psychiatrist. We are watching. Statement from ASU. Fuel price high at 617 naira will further destroy economy. Make naira worthless, a statement coming from experts. Market forces now determine price of petrol, a statement coming from the NNPCL. You can read all the details on page 4, 6, and 21. NPA generated 191.4 billion naira revenue in first half of 2023, remitted 55.7 billion naira to Consolidated Revenue Fund. And on trafficking, how Abuja residents rent out 7-month-old babies daily at 3,000 naira for arms begging. This is a report coming from the NAPTIP DG, and we hope that the federal government looks into something as this, as it's scary and terrible. You can find the details on page 30. On ocean search, Senate to probe 6.5 billion naira shoreline protection contract. Still on Nigerian Tribune, after public outcry, Tinubu reviews 8,000 naira palliative to 12 million households to unveil complete package for Nigerians. More details can be found on page 23, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
Richard, I do not agree less about the issue of, this issue that psychiatrists are seeing, that the issue of unemployment will increase. This mental disorder is very serious, and I think this testing of your BP should not just stop when you are about boarding a plane. Everybody right now, if you are 25 years, even kids right now, please go check your blood pressure to be sure it's stable.
Consistent headache for joke.
Honestly,
yes, it's not fatigue, it's not tiredness, you don't need sleep. It could be your BP. Go and check it.
Honestly, everybody needs to check their BP, because the way things are moving, you really need that.
Do.
Well, let's take a look at the leadership newspaper. And on the leadership, the first story, which I'll be taking, which is a big story on petrol price, Labour CSO kick as NNPCL blames market forces for increase. And we have the here where we see the fuel pump price rise by over 5,000% in 30 years. We're seeing what the price was during the Abacha regime, what it was during the Abubakar regime, what the fuel price was during Obasanjo's regime, which was the lowest, and then we also saw that during the Yaradua's regime, that of the Goodluck Jonathan, Buhari's regime, and then finally that of the Tinubu's regime right now, which tend to be the highest so far right now, looking at the way the graph went. So you can do well to find more detail of that story on the front page. Still on leadership newspaper, we have here On trending, Mrs. Tinubu immortalized Miriam Babangida. You can find more of that. Nigeria inflation rise to 22.7%. You can find both stories on page 2. Honeywell wins 72.2 billion naira damages case against EcoBank. We have ECOWAS countries to raise funds against terrorism. We hope that they succeed. And also we have federal government owing us 323 billion naira, says State Fund. You can find that on page 7. Euro Money names GT Bank Nigerian's best bank. You can find that on page 22. We're seeing a different from that of Zenith Bank that have been taking the lead. Bandits herds flee Plateau into Nasarawa, saying Governor Sule. And this is a problem I have, Rachel. When we see there's insecurity in one state, we don't make measures to protect another state. We've been saying this over and over here on the show that whenever there is an insurgence or whatever it is in one state, and you know that there is a link, especially looking at our forest areas, that these bandits have a way of, moving.
Yeah.
Let's do something by protecting. Let us have security agency in the forest. Since you know where they use. Now the governor of Nasarawa State is telling us they have moved to Nasarawa State. Of course, it's easy because Nasarawa and Plateau State were together before it was separated. So it will be very easy for them to move. So I hope that the government will do something quick and fast. We do not want to hear that another attack is taking place in Nasarawa. We know how many people have died in Plateau State just in the interval of 2-3 days alone. The lot of havoc they did in Mangu, Rio, Berkeley, and the likes of it. So we hope something will be done. We don't want to hear local governments in Nasarawa State that are being attacked, and it's just a matter of time. Nasarawa is not far from the FCT, which is the city capital. So I hope something will be done to protect all of this place. And that's all I have to say on the leadership.
And Sally, even the routes that we thought were safe, like the Akwanga road that we were following, because before it was the Godogoto road to Abuja, and then it became no longer safe again, and people started trying to follow Lafayette through Akwanga, and there have been reports that it's no longer safe at a particular period of time again. By 6 p.m. you shouldn't be on that road, because there have also been cases of kidnapping beginning to happen in that road. So yes, it's not surprising when you hear that whoever are the bandits on the plateau are now moving to Nasarawa State, because I keep saying these people, even if they're faceless at the moment, they look organized, because it's like they know what they want and they keep moving from one place to another, creating attention in a way, in as much as we don't have any message or anything to work with per se. They are doing this they have a pattern already. And this is where I want our security agencies to be ahead of them. Because if you are able to fish out a pattern, then you should be ahead of them. You should be steps ahead of them. Yes, they may have been able to trail the forest and know better route. You should even have people who know how to trail this kind of road. What are you doing with the community people there? What are you doing with the farmers there that have ideas of the possible routes that these people can follow? Walk with them. I keep saying we have better resources than them. It's all left for us to use it. We have more data, more information, and we can't sit down and give excuses that our army or our security agencies don't have enough weapons or ammunition to be able to fight these people. It means that there's something wrong somewhere. Somebody is sleeping on their job. Somebody is diverting the funds that that have been designated for our security agencies to have enough weapon, high grade, up to date, and all of that. It means somebody who has been given that responsibility is not taking that job well. And if we are being underfunded in that kind of area, then why are you not speaking up and letting the government know that we don't have enough arms to battle these people? But if that is not the case, then what is the problem? We have all the resources and everything it needs to take. We shouldn't be seeing things on the paper like them moving from one place to another freely, as if we don't have the power or the resources to stop something like this from happening. There just need to be a wake up in in every system in the country, and one which our eyes are all on because lives are always on the line in this is our security agencies.
Well, Monday we saw when the vice president said that the president will give us some of the tactics he hoped to use because military is not enough. So we hope that he does that as quick as possible because the issues are really, really becoming worrisome. So we hope something will be done on the issue of insecurity. Well, that's all on the leadership newspaper.
On the Vanguard newspaper, oil exploration, Nigeria's rig count rises 27.7% to 14. This is a report. Court asks Ecobank to pay Honeywell 72.2 billion naira damages. And on exchange rate, foreign scholarships to be suspended for 2 years. A statement coming from TED Fund. You can find more details on page 8. Reps to security agencies stop setting vessels with stolen crude oil on fire. The big story on Vanguard, Angas petrol hits 568 naira per litre in Lagos, 617 naira in Abuja and others. We have riders following the story saying motorists, commuters grown nationwide. Market forces driving up petrol prices, says NNPCL CEO Kyari, as no shortfall in petrol supply. NMDPRA blames rising crude prices on freight costs. IBMAM worries over fresh rise in price. NLC rejects new pump price, says is provocative. At situation will worsen poverty and hardship in Nigeria. Local refining only way out. A statement coming from NECA. You can find details on page 5. Tinubu orders review of proposed 8,000 naira cash transfer, plans to unveil federal government palliative package. This is on subsidy removal. You can find details on page 17. And on anthrax, stop eating meat from sick animals. NCDC warns Nigerians. Now we have to trust our butchers and people who are in charge of selling these, that we will hope and trust that they will not give sick meat to us, because when you go, how do you know that this animal was sick before it was being slaughtered and now given to you in the market? So they shouldn't just say so, but then put out a body to regulate that, go to the abattoir and make sure that every cattle that is being caught, gold, whatever is being slaughtered and put out there in the market wasn't a sick animal before being slaughtered. And still on Vanguard newspaper, we have a column by Baba Ahmed. You can find details on page 16. Another one by Afe Babalola on page 22. West Ham Everton fight for a Hanacho. This is for our sports lovers. You can find the details on page 31, and that's all the news on Vanguard newspaper.
Well, I just hope we could go on, but then we are out of time, so we have to stop here. Thank you so much, Richard, for doing this with me. Thank you to all our callers who called in on the show today to actually contribute positively to the program. Regardless of what is happening, I just want to let you know that there's always hope at the end of the day. We hope that the government will actually, hear to the cry of the people and also do something about the hardship that Nigerians are going through right now. But regardless of it, let's say, positive and just hope that the Lord will come through and also that the government will do the right thing. Thank you to our crew members, the general manager, our producer, our supporters, of course. Thank you so much. And also thank you to the Eco Executive. Until we come here again, do have a blessed day ahead.